Right.
Rescission motion to Michelle, so she can be electronic.
Only if you have a seconder for your decision amendment.
Yes, of course. But I'm just
Okay.
making a note.
Good morning, everyone. I declare the meeting open, and I'll ask before we commence that the conditions of this meeting be read by the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This meeting is recorded and live streamed for public viewing via the internet in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice, with the recording stored and made available to the public for later viewing. The recording is subject to copyright. Members of the public attending or speaking at this meeting will be recorded and publicly broadcast. By attending this meeting, you voluntarily consent to your attendance and participation being recorded. Any part of the meeting that is held in closed session will not be live streamed. Council requests that everyone present is respectful and uses appropriate language. Council does not accept liability for any defamatory, discriminatory or offensive comments that are made during the course of the meeting. Please ensure that all electronic devices, including mobile phones, are switched to silent. Under the Code of Meeting Practice, public recording of this meeting is prohibited without prior authorisation by Council. Council streaming of meetings via Facebook is designed to encourage constructive dialogue. We remind users to be digitally responsible and respect their fellow posters. We ask users to keep comments relevant and not to spam or post personal or commercially sensitive information. This includes content that may be defamatory, derogatory, offensive or discriminatory towards council employees, councillors, other persons or organisations. Failure to follow Facebook house rules will result in comments being deleted, and if this behaviour persists, the user will be blocked.
Thank you very much, Madam General Manager, and if I can ask everybody to make sure their phones are turned off and or on silent. I'll open the meeting with the acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land which we are meeting on today and pass my respects to both elders past and present, and also that respect to any Torres Strait or Aboriginal people present today. I will read the civic prayer. Almighty God, from whom comes every good and perfect gift, we give you thanks for the blessings you bestow upon us in this Shire. Grant to those who hold office in this council the spirit of justice and truth, of wisdom and charity, that mindful of our responsibility, we may promote the welfare of your people and advance the common good. Thank you. Have apologies, Councillor Peter Nelson and Councillor Gary Turlin, and I believe Councillor Halstead wishes to read a written statement from Councillor Turlin. Councillor Halstead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This came in to me. I understand that it's also with the administration now. Gary's written the following. May I ask you to read this letter out for me today? That's what I'm doing now. This meeting, as the other so-called emergency meeting on the 25th of March, put all councillors and the staff at great risk and should have never been conducted. I've taken the advice for the Chief Medical Officer, and the Australian Prime Minister to not gather and to social separation be adhered to. I've also consulted my medical specialists and they reinforced that I should not attend this meeting until the Australian Government will allow normal meetings to resume or reconvene. Councillors have no protection as a councillor under the workers' compensation laws. I respected the advice received as Councillor Nelson by not attending and due to the situation with my son's self-isolation in our home in Barrel. Heather and myself have to stay in Bondi. As reported, Bondi, as is Sydney, is listed as a hotspot for the spread of COVID-19 virus. So I and my other family members have been self-isolating and adhering to social distancing laws to protect each other. I have another grandchild due in April and I will protect this little shine of light, and the rest of my family will not attend this meeting. I'll be in the future holding the Mayor, General Manager and staff on their performance in due course. I'll hang on to that bit. You've got your own copy, I think. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
So somebody moved the apologies be accepted. Councillors Whipper and Scandrett put it. All in favour? Those against? Carried. Just before I do go on to declarations of interest, I have rung the Office of Local Government and spoke to John Davies, who rang me back yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock. We went through to make sure that this meeting is conducted in a manner that meets all the requirements under the level 2 of the new rules and regulations. It does. We've done that by banning the attendance of members of the public, and we are in accordance with all the correct procedures that have been laid down. The reason for calling this emergency meeting or extraordinary meeting is under the emergency provisions within the Act, because of the fact that I believe we have every chance of going into lockdown. I may be wrong, but I didn't want to take the chance of that occurring when we have some very important notices, rescission motions that have been lodged, and we wouldn't be here if those rescission motions hadn't been lodged with council. But they have, as such, we have to deal with them. And to me, it is better to deal with them expeditiously and expediently and get them out of the way, because otherwise we won't be meeting the requirements of being able to conduct council meetings, and subject to the rescission motions either getting up or failing, we will not be meeting for a month at least, and that will be subject to the placement of video streaming, live streaming into councillors' houses. No, there is no comment, please. I'll have, unless you have a declaration of interest.
I had a question.
Question, Councillor Scandrick.
You want me to say?
Yes, that please.
Mr. Mayor, I haven't got a red light. Recognising the state government are moving to allow us to have video meetings, how will the public participate in those?
You asked that question at the last council.
In terms of public forum.
And I will wait and take advice when we start getting into that area. My understanding, reading the recommendations from the Office of Local Government, is that there will be the opportunity to have live streaming available to that meeting to the public. How that happens, I'm not a computer or communications guru, and I'll leave that to the staff.
Just a question too.
Yes, Councillor Halstead.
Thanks for your information. I'm wondering if, in fact I'll probably put in a request. I'd like to request you to give consideration to the removal of Councillor McLaughlin from this meeting as a result of his ill health of sorts over the last few weeks. And I'll cite this, as well as I can go to other documents. Don't want to do that, but one has to be very careful when one's around someone that's had the cold or the flu. Clearly Councillor McLaughlin's had at least the cold. So I'm asking you, would you give consideration to that?
That is up to the councillor to take that into consideration, as Councillor Turland attended and Councillor Nelson hasn't. So that is a total of the up to the councillor. So thank you for the question. Declarations of interest. We have no declarations of interest. Now the council reports will go to 6.1, and I will be running it in meeting procedure, and that will be 2 speakers for, 2 speakers against. If there is not any more than 2 speakers, then I will ask somebody to move that the motion be put. So the first one is that the notice of rescission motion, permission to backyard burning in bushfire affected villages, and council has the resolution that be given. The recommendation is that should be rescinded. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Scandrick. Do I have a seconder?
Can I ask
You can ask a question.
Ask a question.
In light of what was written down at the bottom there, is there any way in which what you originally had, which I tended to favour, can incorporate the section there about that the actual approval comes from the Rule 5? I know you can read into that in number 2, but can your number 2, the original motion, somehow reflect that?
No, otherwise we're rescinding the motion and then we're getting back into open debate. I appreciate what you're doing, Councillor Halstead. That could be raised by a notice of motion when we have our first meeting, that be taken into consideration.
Mine was a question also, Mr. Mayor. My question was, could the staff advise as to whether Penrose should be part of this?
That's why I can answer that. That is why the mayoral minute came forward, that there be not discrimination between Penrose and Wingecarribee, and that it be given to those villages as suggested by the staff and put into the mayoral minute.
I think your mayoral minute said just Bundanoon on top of the ones
Thank
that
you,
were there.
Well,
But
whatever,
Penrose-
the recommendation of the staff is what is to be
Well,
done, and if you wish to alter that, then a notice of motion at the next meeting of council
Mr. Mayor,
would be
I'm
the way to go.
just asking that the staff confirm whether Penrose is part of this, that's all.
No,
Mr. Paul could answer that straight away.
Mr. Paul,
The issue is whether you're going to rescind the
the
motion.
motion.
Well, I'm with
No,
Councillor.
Councillor Scandrett, please do not upset this meeting any more than you have in the previous times.
General Manager.
Do you see the
Would
recommendation?
you like me to answer?
No, I ask you to resume your seat.
I think you're disrupting.
I
the speech.
asking you to resume your seat. You are with the decision.
This is theatre. I'm just asking
Yes,
a
it
question.
is theatre,
Just for the
Councillor
record, I'm
Scandrett.
just asking a
It
question.
is-
Point of order, Mr Mayor. Councillor Scandrett is speaking off the topic. He's not talking about the rescission motion. He's trying to make public statements. He should resume his chair and stay.
Thank you, Councillor Markwart. The Councillor Scandrett, do you have a seconder for that the matter? Okay, then nobody's moving it.
I'm not moving it.
Okay, would somebody move that it be noted? Move Councillor Whipper, second Councillor Markwart, that as there is no, how would we word this please, Mr Paul? That as there is no mover or seconder, the rescission motion lapses. Okay? Move Councillor Whipper and second Councillor Markwart. Put it, all in favour, those against, carried. Now we go to 6.2, notice of rescission motion deliveries to supermarket and food retailers. There is what are you doing, Councillor Scandrett? Are you moving it?
I'm moving an amended motion, which I have sent to to Michelle and copied to Mark.
Mr Mayor, you first of all have to decide whether you're going to rescind the motion that was passed at the council meeting.
Is it you, Councillor Scandrett, you seem to be confused as the reason we're here. You cannot submit a motion unless the motion that you are rescinding is rescinded. Now, the motion was that the matter be noted. So you're attempting to rescind that the matter be noted. So are you moving it? Are you, Councillor Scandrett, I'm asking you a question. Are you moving that or you can't move anything?
Well, Mr Mayor, I'm changing the...
No, you're not, Councillor Scandrett.
I can't get a word
No,
in
you
to answer your
cannot
question.
get a word in because I am asking, that is the only thing that can happen, is that you rescind that the matter be noted.
Mr Mayor,
Are you going to move that or not?
I'm asking that you let me
No,
explain.
I am not. Are you going to move that or not? Will somebody please move that as the same way as before? That as through the
Rescission motion
lapses through the want of a seconder. Okay, move Councillor McLaughlin, seconded Councillor Andrews. Is there any discussion? I put it, all in favour. Carried.
There is discussion, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Motion's been put, councillor Scandrett.
This is a joke.
No, it is a joke. We shouldn't be here, councillor Scandrett. It is a joke that we are here. 6.3, notice of rescission motion, novel corona, well, I call it COVID-19 arrangements for council. Do I have a mover that it be rescinded? Moves councillor Halstead, seconded councillor Scandrett. Councillor Halstead.
We've moved what you can see at the bottom there, which was what I debated at the last meeting, which was the issue of tenders not be delegated to the GM. There's a whole lot of reasons for that, but also looking at the history of it, I know Councillor McLaughlin yesterday said we didn't change any. That might be the case, but what happened was that councillors were able to have a look at the tenders, and I certainly did. Didn't find any problems with them as such, but I certainly agree with the fact that they should be reviewed by the councils. That's a democratic process, and are allowed to have a look at, for example, what the requirements of the regulations are. I'm sure some councils have that ability and certainly able to look at it. So I don't have any problem with that. As I said before, it's something that I think should be in the hands of yourself and the Deputy Mayor, and stick strongly to it. So I'm not going to debate that very strongly, but other than to say that I don't support the recommendation, therefore I support.
Thank you, councillor Halstead. Speaker against, and that will be councillor Markwart, and then then I'll be asked for a speaker for, councillor Scandrett, and then councillor Whipper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise basically to speak the original resolution as it stands. I think it's self-explanatory. It gets the work done and gets us through this next month or so efficiently. I'll sit on that. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Markwart. Councillor Scandrett.
A question comes to mind here, Mr Mayor, and that is, are there any substantial tenders likely to come through to council in the period that this covers, which I think is to the
Until June the 20th?
June the 30th, yes.
30th?
Yes. Could I send that question through the General Manager?
I believe you're in debate, councillor.
That probably answers the question. Thank you.
Councillor Whipper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to speak against the rescission motion. I have full faith in the General Manager's competency. This is an interim measure. As I said previously, these are extraordinary times and we have to take whatever measures we need to make things continue along. So I'll be certainly voting against the rescission.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin, you can't speak. It's 2 for, 2 against, moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded Councillor McLaughlin, that the motion be put. Thank you. All in favour of the rescission motion, please raise your hands. Councillors Scandrett and Halstead, those against. I declare the motion lost. Motion lost. We now move on to. There is a request for the recording of votes. Councillor Halstead, you wish for your name to be recorded? Notice of rescission motion, re Station Street, 6.4, that the recommendation be rescinded, moved by Councillors Scandrett and Halstead. You wish to speak to it, Councillor Scandrett?
Yes, Mr Mayor, and could I ask if Ms Richardson has the email ready to cut the post?
No, we are not debating that.
No, it's part of this. Thank you.
No, Councillor Scandrett, you are moving that the matter be rescinded. That is what is being debated.
All right,
no
well,
email,
I'll go to
no
that, but
motion.
I'm just trying to expedite them.
Then let's expedite it.
Fine. Well, should this be carried, I'll be putting up an amended recommendation there, which will be about moving forward. And On that, it will be saying that council suspend all works on Station Street upgrade until this pandemic, passes, and that our way of life returns as normal as we have known it. That this project and stage 2 be shovel ready, logically, to apply for federal and state government grants in the future. 3, that this project and stage 2 be publicly re-advertised and reconsulted as the changes are too much from the original project, first approved project. 4, that the fund that has been set aside be developed to help our community through this very, very difficult time. That's referring to other projects, Mr Mayor, that might already be shovel ready. 5, that the removal of the heritage pin oaks on the western side of Station Street be deferred for 12 months. 6, that a timetable be published for the proposed Station Street works, upgrade works. And 7, that council confirm within 2 days that the provisions of the New South Wales planning legislation have been complied with in the proposed construction of this report, and that this confirmation includes providing to council a report on the preparation and review of environmental factors and the like, and that staff confirm that they are aware of the provisions of the SEPPP Infrastructure 2000. Oh, this dropped off that, I think it's 2007, and whether an activity consent has been issued, and when was that, and when will the consent be issued if that hasn't been. In other words, what's the urgency on this, Mr Mayor? Why are we having why did we have this pushed through and put into the time frame to be dealt with whilst this council was in recess? Because that's essentially what's going to be happening. What's the urgency with Station Street, everyone? Why do we have to get on with this? Why can't we divert those funds to some smaller projects around the towns and villages that are shovel ready? Sports facilities, for example, would be a very good start. There's a number of improvements on the table, footpaths, cycle paths, and the like. What is the urgency with Station Street? And is it going to have any benefit for local businesses in terms of the contractors? I mean, this building is being dealt with by a Sydney contractor.
Thank you. I'm going to sum up on this, but Councillor McLaughlin, there may not be another speaker, so I'm going to speak. Councillor McLaughlin, I am going to speak. I am going to speak.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, sorry. There's been comments made just then on a project that's been on council's books for 35 years, and saying, let's divert the money. How was the money put in place to this project by council? It was through Section 94 contributions. That cannot be moved. It was done under a Section 94 contribution. As such, that's where the money is coming from, and you cannot do this. So that cannot, Councillor Scandra's recommendation can't happen. The thought, and I got a phone call today, that it go to small business who may be doing it tough. No, thank you, Councillor Scandra. Will you please put your hand down? You are not going to interrupt my right to speak. No, thank you. I will continue speaking. And that the money be distributed to small business because they will be doing it financially they will be under financial duress. We cannot do that. It is also not up to us to do that. We have our mechanism in place that we will be considering in relation to hardships from business sector. The other thing is that Infrastructure New South Wales has given us on more than one occasion, after 5 years of putting this money into a scheme for us to utilise it for the bypass or state distributor road, they are getting very, very short-fused on this. If we do not go back and show them that we are committed to this project, and this is the only design that will work, the only design that will work, the only design that will work, we will lose the money. We will lose the money. I'll say it for the third time. we will lose the money. You are wondering about the urgency? That is the urgency. And the community of Bowral and all the commuters who use that road will be sitting in congested and backed up traffic for forever, because the state government will say, well, this council can't get their act together. The council's fractured. The councillors are putting in rescission motions. The councillors don't want this project to go ahead. Well, I do. And all other councillors, I believe, do as well, other than those who signed the rescission motion. So I cannot understand it. We had united, nearly unanimous support, 8-1, and now it is being undermined. And unless we do it, we will be seen as a laughing stock by Sydney Trains, RMS, Infrastructure New South Wales. Councillor Halstead, do you wish to speak? No, I'll have it against.
Look, I'm going along with the rescission motion, and you recall the other night when I spoke on this, and I think Councillor Turlin was exactly the same. Both of us agree with the project. So that last statement you made was inaccurate. So the 8-1 at that stage, way back, was exactly as you said. We don't disagree with the project, and I want to make that abundantly clear again. What we are concerned about is the fact that we're trying to push it now in this time of pandemic, which I think is wrong, and we're basically looking at that, we're seeking a deferral until the pandemic passes or an appropriate time down the line. Can't speak for Councillor Scandrett, but certainly that's the way I feel very strongly about that. And the project has changed substantially, and I agree with you. It's probably the only design, certainly from my point of view looking at it, the design's been played around with for quite some time, or amended, and finally come up with a design that's probably going to work. I object strongly to the removal of 8 trees, however, in that, and I'll stick to that one, regardless of the information we got the other night. I don't accept all that was said there. And simply, can we be sure, for example, it's going to be awarded to a local tenderer? No, and I'd be very much doubtful that would happen, which is unfortunate. It'd be good if it was, but you couldn't guarantee that, because we see too often now the adoption of tenders without consideration to local content, which is quite permissible, preference to local tenderers. And I think that's a message I'm trying to send here now that should be looked at. So from that point of view, I agree with the rescission motion. It might be exactly how I would word it, but I've signed it and I'm going to stick by it. But do I oppose the project? No, I don't. But I'm saying, let's not do it right now.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm opposing this rescission motion. I think this project needs to go ahead for all the reasons you've talked about. Councillor Halstead makes some good points about local tenderers. I'm hoping that a lot of local people can tender this. We do give a preference for our local contractors at 5% or something. Maybe we should look at that. Maybe we make it more. I don't know. But we certainly need to keep people in work, Mr Mayor. Need to keep jobs going. This council is one of the biggest employers in the Shire, and we've got to keep jobs, as we see a lot of jobs stopping right across this country. So those people that can work at a distance with PPP, I think is important that these jobs go forward. As you've suggested, 8-1, we were supportive of this project. We haven't got any alternatives. We've got to move forward with this at the moment. Council is poised in this position, and I think to have this COVID-19 going forward now is not a time to stop projects. While ever we can keep working and keep money flowing in our community and keep jobs going, I think that's just so important. To stop it now just to put it on hold, I just think it's the wrong way to go, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I now put them. Who's going to move the motion? Be put. Councillor Scandrett and seconded Councillor Andrews. Will you? No, there's no right of reply. Then I put the rescission motion that it be put as moved by Councillor Scandrett and Andrews. All in favour? Councillor of the rescission motion? Oh yeah, no. I'm just following meeting procedure that the meeting be put. So all in favour of the rescission motion that was moved by Councillor Scandrett and seconded by Councillor Andrews, please raise your hand. Councillor Halstead and Scandrett. Those against? Councillors Andrew, no. Councillors Andrew, Whipper, Markwart, McLaughlin and Gare. I declare the rescission motion lost. As such, the motion stands, and as there is no further business, I declare the meeting closed. No, you move that the motion be put. Yep. The rescission motion was moved by Councillor Scandrett and Halstead. Yes and no. There was no. All right. Look after yourselves, everyone.